on the
Oh, I have to click something to approve.
Hi there, I'm Katrina Zawawi, and I'm here today with Luna, who has been a client of mine, and we've worked together in group Kundalini yoga sessions, and also she's worked with me one-to-one. And I wanted to interview Luna today to share with you all her experience of how she has found Kundalini yoga and how it has been a big part of her journey towards her own healing. So Luna, please share with us a little bit about yourself and share how Kundalini yoga has helped you on your own healing journey so far. Over to you.
Hi, I'm Luna. It's probably relevant that I am autistic and I also have ADHD, and I am also a yoga teacher, although I teach a different style of yoga. I was interested in Kundalini yoga because I had a course in it that I was trying to do, but I got intimidated by it and backed off because it all seemed a bit scary, because it's not the kind of thing that I usually do when I'm autistic, and I don't like scary things that I don't know what people are, up to. And then I saw that Kat had posted something on Facebook, and a mutual friend had commented, and I think they might even have tagged me because she mentioned autism.
Yes.
And then I went and I was like, oh yeah, I know how that works, but I'm still not doing it because I know what you're doing to me, but it still scares me. And eventually I thought, I'm going to have to go along to these classes, because if I want to actually qualify in it, then I'm going to have to, experience it firsthand. And as a teacher, actually giving away your powers to another teacher and letting them lead is actually really intimidating, because a lot of us do it because of a need for control. So it was the weirdest yoga class I've ever been to in my life. When I went to the first one with you at where was it? The Complementary Health Clinic.
Yeah, that's right.
And all the others, I walked in, and the other people are what I would have my brain went, these are proper yoga people, not like you. Because they all had their own blankets and everything, and they were getting really, really into it. And obviously I'm a little bit socially awkward because of my autism, and some of the stuff we had to do was quite funny, to be honest. So, then I kind of started to get the idea that, obviously the whole point of it is for you to lose your inhibitions. And as an autistic person, obviously generally very controlled, trying to project an air of normality at all times with varying degrees of success, but attempting to try and blend in with the other humans. And my favourite bit of the Kundalini yoga is there's basically 15 minutes in the middle where Kat puts on some shaky music, and I've tried this at home, and it works really well with 90s dance music as well, because I used to be a rave. So I'm having raves in my kitchen every night, thanks to you, happy hardcore. I've been living my room when I was much more cheerier. And so basically, so it's effectively permission to get all the physical effects of having a meltdown or suppressing stress out of your body, because by the time you get to my age, you can suppress your meltdowns to the point that they're not physical and they just kind of go internal. But that's really actually more damaging, because all that meltdown energy gets stuck in you. And if you can really get into the zone with it, it's like your body takes over and does it automatically. That's the weird thing about it. Well, mine does. Maybe it doesn't for neurotypicals, I don't know. But at some point I can let go, and it's like my body just handles the thing, and I'm always just sort of letting my body get on with it, and I'm watching. And it's been really, really healing. So I've had massive releases of stress. I've been doing some inner work, obviously, because I was undiagnosed autistic until my 40s, so I'm traumatized. So I've been doing inner work in conjunction with that, but having all of this put together. And I think every time I do the Kundalini, it will then spark me to do something else, which will also be helpful. So it's like a knock-on effect. And so that, the yoga, plus all the other stuff that's been going on for me, I've been burnt out for 3 years. Previously, I was so we can't talk about functioning in autism, but if we were talking about functioning, I was over functioning. I was trying to make up for my perceived deficits, which is in my head, because I didn't know I was disabled. So I was like, not only am I going to be functioning the best of everyone, I'm going to be like super functional. And then obviously gave myself massive burnout, which has taken me 3 years to get over. So now I'm like, yeah, and it's taken me, and it was so 4 years ago, I got diagnosed with autism, 3 years ago, ADHD, complete nervous breakdown. Changed my name to Luna, not my original name, because I was like, I need to draw a line under my old life. My original name is Diane, which has got the same meaning, goddess of the moon, which I think goes quite well with Kundalini yoga. And so, yeah. So yeah, and since I've been called Luna, I've been like, I'm sort of really getting into my inner child. I used to be a chartered accountant, would you believe? It never really suited me, and people always said, I can't believe you're an accountant. Like, no, nor me. And turns out it wasn't really what I was supposed to be doing. It was what my school and my parents thought I should be doing.
So given that you were an accountant before, does this phase of life that you're in now, looking back, seem very alien to you that you were an accountant?
Yes, it really does, because like accountancy and ADHD are really a strange combination.
Yeah.
And I had a boss once that told me that I'd be more suited to being a weather girl than an accountant, which was obviously a thinly veiled dig at my ADHD. But I'm so autistic, I just went, but I'm not pretty enough to be a weather girl.
Oh dear.
I'm so completely disappointed. But I'd messed things up all the time, and I ended up self-employed, and it was all right for a while because I was basically dealing with other weirdos. So, but lockdown came, stress, and I was like, why am I killing myself for something I don't actually like doing, that I was just doing as a stopgap when I left school, that I'm still doing 20 years later? Yeah. Trained as a group fitness instructor 10 years ago, so the writing was on the wall at that point, really. Like it's like I had a double life: accountant by day, diva by night.
Wow. So you did
that was the beginning, but that's how I then got into teaching yoga, because I was doing group X and that. But I only ever did yoga because I was so tight from teaching other stuff like body pump. I wasn't into any of the spiritual stuff. It's like, this is just stretching. And it's not just stretching.
Yeah. So your experience of Kundalini yoga has really awakened you to this whole spiritual connection now that you are talking about.
I mean, yeah, no, I'm getting these weird things. I can't even talk about this to other people. I'm getting these weird synchronicities. Like yesterday morning, I woke up and it was the middle of the night, and I said, Alexa, what time is it? And she said 4:44 a.m. And I went, what? I found like a little thing in the park which felt like a gift from my spirit guides. It was a little key ring. And people like Kat and several other people have suddenly all appeared in my life at like seemingly like the perfect time, although my rational mind is going, well, maybe you're just noticing things because your brain is actually awake now. But even so, it's like, yeah, everything, I'm kind of like, I feel like I'm going with the flow of the universe and flowing with the Tao, whatever you want to call it. I'm just, I'm not over controlling things, I guess.
No.
To take it back.
Oh, yeah. So I want you to explain, Luna, how you felt after your first initial chakra clearing session with me, when we worked as a group. If you can think back to that. The
first one wasn't as effective because I was still up in my head, and I'm like, so obviously the Kundalini yoga has some stuff in it that once you work out what you're doing, you're like, oh my God. And then the woman next to me seemed to be like really enjoying herself, and I'm socially awkward. So like, I was like, oh, what the hell have I walked into? And I've had this before, where I've gone into a yoga class with some people who were like really not like me, and they made us sing and like cuddle. And I was like, my God, that's like my autism. But then after I'd done it a couple of times, and what helped was when I was able to take my own props and stuff, once I realised what was involved. And then because I have disabilities, it can hurt me more than it can hurt other people. So once I worked out what the best way to do it was for my body, that's when it's become more effective, like doing some of the exercises on a chair, say, just because it really helps me activate at the moment. Because while I was ill, I've sort of become a lot more disabled physically. because the stuff I got fitness, and it's you're never going to cure yourself a disability, but you can certainly improve it. But I'd gone so far backwards that I'm like, okay, even though I'm a yoga teacher, I could sit here and I could just have a painful back, or I could just get over myself and get on a chair. And then once I did that, massive difference. And also the one-to-one that I had with you, like during it, like I had so much clearing all down my front. So it's like a load of tension, like down the entire front line of my body, which is, I think, where I hold my energy to repel people.
Right.
And obviously various trauma things as well. But I just felt it all coming out. And that was one of the most dramatic ones. And then I've had, like, since then, that I find that I'm very demand avoidant, so I won't follow a routine someone else gives me. It just doesn't happen. But I find myself sitting on my bed in the morning doing this, thinking, oh, I'm doing Kundalini, aren't I? And like little circles and stuff. So it's like my body's just doing it for me now, which I guess is the idea. Yeah. And I don't chant, but I sing in the car.
That's good.
And my singing voice is improved.
That's really good. Right? Yeah.
And I think I've got perfect pitch now.
Awesome. So did you not think you had so before then?
So when I was a child, I had really bad ears. I had to have like loads of operations on my ears, grommets and things, which I now understand is linked to autism. I don't know whether it's causal or it's just, you know, a thing that goes along with it. Yeah. Probably a thing that goes along with it. But I had bad ears, which was around the time that I was learning to talk, which is why I monologue rather than converse. So thanks for putting up with that. But at the age of like 6, so I went to school in Channel Islands, so I don't know if England is the same. We all had to go through a test of our musicality to see if we were able to play a musical instrument paid for by the education service. And they gave me 3 chances at it, but because of my bad ears, I failed. Now, I've always loved singing and playing music, so I didn't get music lessons at school on an instrument because I failed this test when I was 5. But I was in the choir and I learned to play the keyboard to some sort of level during my teens, and the organ as well, the Hammond organ with the foot pedal as well. So you're doing both hands and one foot. So it's quite complicated. And I always really enjoyed that. But I've always been kind of aware that I am sort of tone deaf. And like if I'm singing a choir, I can't, unless I'm singing the main tune, I can't tune out the other people. Now, yesterday I was listening to music again. And it's like there's more information coming in from the music, and then I can hear a song and then I can sing that note rather than something like it. And I think were I to train that, I could be pretty decent.
That sounds really good.
And like I've walked my whole life that I have no musicality.
So that's
basically
throat and the perspective, your third eye chakra is clearing up. So to help you perceive here, and also
our ears, the throat chakra, because when you see people about your ears, it's an ear, nose and throat doctor.
But it's very much
so
third eye, throat, both together.
Okay.
Yeah, both together.
Okay.
They kind of like they blend.
I've got a third ear.
You got a third ear?
I've got a third ear as well as the third eye.
Well, yeah. The thing is, the third eye also perceives in forms of like hearing as well. So it's perception.
Okay.
It's things that you take in rather than necessarily seeing something physically. It's that's why they say it's the third eye is to do with the perception. So perception is auditory as well, because we hear things, we take in communication that comes in, and so
and that's why the third eye is implicated in autism then.
Yes, there is a massive link from what I've studied so far and what I've seen that people with autism have a more switched on third eye, like their third eye is more of a, like, say, higher functioning.
It's like it's stuck open.
Yes, correct.
Basically.
Yeah, basically. And with the lack of understanding, which is what happens with a lot of autism, that's why they have this need to shake a lot, stim a lot, because their lower part of the bodies are not centered or grounded into.
Oh, to be fair, the fidgeting has reduced lately.
That's interesting.
I mean, I still do fidget.
Yeah, well, that's we all fidget from time to time, but if you've noticed that there's noticeable change, that you're fidgeting less, stimming less. And the good thing about Kundalini yoga, now to shake it off, and when things get too intense, your body automatically wants to do that. So it is interesting. Yeah, very, very interesting. Yeah. Sorry, you're going to say.
Like, that expression, feeling comfortable in your skin? It's like I literally feel comfortable in my skin, whereas normally it's uncomfortable.
Yes, I understand that. Yeah. So, and when has this sort of like feeling comfortable in your skin happened to you? Like, at what point did you feel that you feel comfortable in your skin now?
Really, since the other day when I went swimming in the river.
Oh, wow.
It kind of has escalated. I was improving up until that point, but I told you about it. I went swimming in the river, and it was like after, really, it wasn't really summer anymore. No one else was swimming, but I had this sudden urge to go swimming in the river, and my husband took me, and I swam around, and it was very clearing. And then afterwards, like, I've just been releasing non-stop ever since. It's actually calmed down today. I was up half the night releasing.
Wow.
It's been quite dramatic. When I do something, this your viewers, when I do something, I do not do something by halves, right? If I'm having a release, I'll encourage it, and it will just go on for hours because I'm self-employed.
Yes.
And so, yeah, this morning I have this sense. I had a lot of had an argument with my husband yesterday. It made me cry, and it seemed to clear like the final bit. And I went this morning. I'd say my mind is, it's not still. It's never still, but it's less choppy, and my body doesn't feel comfortable. Normally sitting here, I'd be aware of my back hurting and my shoulders being tight, and I'm not.
Very good. That's amazing. And how are you when it comes to going to sleep at night? Do you find it hard to drop off? Are you able to sleep properly?
It doesn't bother me any way at all whether I fall asleep, because I know people get obsessed with their sleep patterns, don't they? So I fall asleep when I fall asleep, and I wake up in the morning. I don't overanalyze it. I don't track my sleep. Like last night, I was up until about 2:30, and then I woke up about 7. I always set my alarm for 7 because one of my other coaches, so this relates to the third eye, one of my other coaches is obsessed with circadian rhythms, which is obviously your pineal gland, which is your melatonin, which is third eye. I know bits of things. I'm not an expert, but I can make you think of one. Anyway, so he's obsessed with the third eye. No, he's obsessed with the pineal gland and circadian rhythm. So he made me get up early every morning. And that was part of what sparked it. Because I think, I'm spending a lot of time indoors and a lot of time lying down. So my third eye pineal gland wasn't getting enough light into it. So that, in conjunction with the Kundalini, and so every morning I've got basically, as soon as the sun comes up, I've got to jog down the stairs and have an electrolyte drink and just get some sunshine into my eyeballs. And that's been life-changing as well. And it's interesting that he's gone with circadian rhythms, which I then said, well, that's the third eye, don't you know, because he's not a yoga teacher. And then obviously the third eye chakra thing. So it's like all of my coaches kind of synchronized around the right point without me having to do anything.
Well, that's a good sign then we're all teaching correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. The third eye is very much connected to the pineal gland, and the problem with the pineal gland is that if we don't get the circadian rhythm right, it actually shrinks and gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And with our lifestyle, using technology and using a lot of blue light before getting to sleep, we're not able to stimulate the pineal gland, and that is very much connected to the third eye. And yes, it is part of Kundalini yoga because it's part of the chakras. It's how it works. So, yeah.
Here's the thing you might not have considered. The people who use technology the most, i.e. get the most screen time, are autistic people. And if that affects your pineal gland, the fact that we are all literally addicted to our phones because it's a stim, it's a calming thing. Yeah. So that's interesting, because a lot of people who get burnout are not necessarily diagnosed autistic, but they work in IT.
Yes, that's a very yeah, exactly. They're a lot of them, because they work in areas that involve them concentrating on a topic or a subject that they can be hyper focused on, because autism works really well when a person is really hyper focused, really interested in a specific topic. And if that topic is their job, and a lot of people that do work in IT tend to be on the spectrum as well. So yeah,
Accountants as well, actually.
Sorry?
You tend to be accountants, tend to be as well. Well, a lot of them.
Yeah. I suppose it's because
But they don't tend to get ADHD.
they don't have ADHD. It's more autism, isn't it?
Yeah, basically, so people who are just autistic,
Mm.
I struggle with them sometimes because they haven't got that ADHD streak. It's almost like the ADHD dilutes the autism.
Okay. How would you rate your diagnosis? Would you say that you are half and half, or do you feel that you're more autistic than ADHD? Or are they days?
I personally do not feel that I have two separate conditions. I feel it's all part of the same thing. Other people disagree on that. I rarely meet an ADHD person that doesn't have autistic traits.
Interesting. Yeah.
My personal theory, and this is based on nothing other than my own speculation, so please don't take this as gospel. But since they removed the diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome, more people are being labelled with ADHD rather than ASD. It's almost like the people that would have been put as Asperger's are being put as ADHD now, because people perceive that as a less serious condition than autism, when in fact it isn't. I have more problems from my ADHD than I have from my autism, definitely, like the distraction and that. And it just seems like the NHS possibly are. So when I went and approached the NHS for a diagnosis, they would not put me on the waiting list for autism, but they did put me on the waiting list for ADHD, which kind of proves my point, because I am very autistic. And they're like, well, you can either have autism, which is like the serious one, or we can put you for ADHD, which they see as less, but is actually, I think, more problematic.
Yeah, I think so as well. Yeah.
That's my theory.
No, that's very interesting.
Because there's been a massive perception, there's been a big change of labels. I also believe I would tick the boxes for pathological demand avoidance profile rather than or, and I'm definitely not high functioning, which they have me as, because I can hold a conversation and seem no, it's not seeming intelligent. I am intelligent. I'm very good at talking. I'm intelligent. But I have the life management skills of a 12-year-old.
So is that what you consider as being lower functioning or finding challenges?
Well, functioning isn't really a thing anyway, because basically what the thing is what you realise over the years after you get diagnosed, that I was almost like, it's a difficult topic because I don't want to get myself in trouble, but I was always, when they told me I was high functioning, I was like, oh, that's a compliment. And then you slowly realise that it's not, because what they're saying is, yeah, we think you're a weirdo, but we don't think you're deserving of help.
Yeah.
So, like the doctor said, you're probably on the spectrum, but you're really too high functioning to have a diagnosis.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I was actually having a complete nervous breakdown. And I went in using the last of my super functioning to ask for help, and then was told, you're functioning too much. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to go in, sit in the corner and flap and make animal noises for them to take me seriously? But that's a little bit over the top, isn't it? Might be what I want to do.
Yeah.
But I'm an adult.
Yeah.
And I can control that.
Yeah.
And then I'm penalised for the fact that I'm trying to behave as I've been trained to behave.
Yeah.
And then eventually I decided to just stop functioning. It's like, okay, well, while people think that everything's going fine, like they're just keeping me doing the stuff that is slowly killing me. So I'm going to have to take a choice to literally go on strike. No, I'm not high functioning. I am not functioning at all.
Yeah.
And my husband was basically a carer for the last 3 years. Now, I was a person that had 2 companies. I'm prize winning clever. I win prizes for exams. I can literally turn out qualifications in my sleep. But I have been in bed for the best part of 3 years, and my husband is genuinely my carer, and I've just applied for disability benefits. So, like, what part of that is high functioning? What the labels are basically based on your ability to communicate, I think, and obviously physical disabilities.
Yeah.
But in terms of the autism element, you're either autistic or you're not. And your functioning depends on what's happened to you on many levels. Now, obviously, we all have different co-occurring disabilities. So some people will have autism plus something else, and that something else might be more disabling. It doesn't mean their autism is worse.
No, that's a very good point. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
But I'm hoping I haven't got myself in trouble with that, because it is a very touchy subject, obviously, functioning labels. But I feel like I had a first-hand dose of why functioning labels are a load of crap, which is why I'm so pedantic about it, because if you saw my house, you wouldn't call me high functioning. If you saw how much I sit around doing absolutely nothing, you wouldn't call me high functioning. But if you have a conversation with me like this,
yeah,
oh, I'm high functioning because I'm conversing with you.
yeah, exactly. Being able to communicate. Yeah, so it's all based on, again, it's based on social, isn't it? It's based on how you're able to socialize with other people, and
well, it's more how much trouble you've got to them.
And the thing with,
it's like you're the best hassle.
say that again. Sorry, I missed that part you've said.
It's almost like the functioning labels are based on, well, a person you would say is high functioning or low support needs is someone that's not really much bothered to the system, whereas other people are, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's how it is. So basically, they will attempt to label you as functional as possible for the simple reason they do not have the budget to help you. There is no money to help you.
Well, this is what it comes.
Unless you go private.
Yeah, yeah. So someone like yourself is someone that could easily fall through the gaps, isn't it? Because you have to.
I have fallen through the gaps.
Yeah,
I literally fell through the gaps.
You've had to fight really hard in order to be recognized and in order to get.
I'm lucky to be alive. Like, if it hadn't been for the people that have been supporting me, I don't think I would still be alive at this point.
Oh, sure.
And the reason I'm still alive is mainly because I'm so angry that if this happened to someone else, it might actually kill them. Yeah. That I'm prepared to stand up here and say, yes, I might have qualifications coming out of my arse, but I am standing here telling you that I am disabled, and I'm going to do that for the people that won't do it or can't do it. I've got nothing left. I literally have nothing left to lose. I've lost my businesses. I've lost everything. I've got my house, and I've got my husband, and I've got my pets. That is all I've got. And my yoga studio, which I rent, which is where I am. But I have hit rock bottom. I have nothing else to lose. It doesn't matter to me if people have a negative opinion of me or are judgmental of me, because I'm doing this because I do not want this to happen to someone else, because it's not acceptable.
No, absolutely. And I think also, as a woman with autism, you've spent your whole life masking, haven't you? You kind of like,
tried. Not that successfully, but yes.
Yeah, well, you must have achieved what you had.
No, well, what happened when I found out that I was autistic, I basically went round asking everyone I knew if they thought I was autistic, and they all said yes. And I said, well, why didn't you bloody tell me then? Even my parents knew.
Seriously?
That was the worst one. I said to my dad, I need some help with one of the questionnaires. And I said, I think I'm on a spectrum. And he went, it's not really a surprise. And I went, what do you mean it's not really a surprise? Did you not think to mention this some point during the last 40 years? Did it not cross your mind at all?
No.
And so everyone except me knew, which also upset me, because I was like, well, I thought that I'd been masking successfully and blending in, but it turns out that everyone I know doesn't think that I'm blending in that successfully, because they all know I'm autistic. And then I'm like, and why am I pretending to be normal if they don't believe me anyway? So then I went so autistic.
Yeah, so yeah, I can understand that. So you kind of like sprung back to who you really are.
Yeah.
But then you were able to succeed with your qualifications. But then again, a lot of people with autism have got that gifted and talented ability to do very well in education, haven't they? Because they can really like hyper focus.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I think with women, most of us are okay until, so if you were like getting away with it, I was okay until I was probably in my mid-30s, because I think once your hormones start to like mess with you, then it makes the traits more noticeable. So whereas before I could cope with it,
yes,
the hormonal changes for perimenopause, I guess,
yes,
were like would make the ADHD hormones make the ADHD like ridiculous for like a week.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then people start to notice that you're struggling. And then, I had a boss try to diagnose me with a mental illness because I was late a couple of times.
So, Luna, I'm going to come back to your burnout because this is very important, and I think it would also tie in with what I want to talk about with Kundalini yoga. At what point did you realize that you were burnt out? Was there like a eureka moment?
It was the 1st of February 2019, at first thing in the morning, because I was a tax accountant. And that year was another year where I'd basically been pulling all-nighters to get tax returns done. So you talk about hyper-focus. 31st of January 2019, I personally filed 80 tax returns online. I was going from 8 a.m. in the morning until 1 minute to midnight. And I was also at the same time teaching about 20 group exercise classes a week. And my boss at the leisure centre refused to give me any holiday in January. So because I'm an idiot, just went, oh, right, well, I'll teach all of the classes and do all of the tax returns then. So I was teaching triples every evening and then going home and doing tax until like 3 a.m. And I thought, well, it's only a month, I'll get through it. I've done it before. But that year, my husband got sick as well. He had a cancer scare, which meant he had to go into hospital, and then he had an infection afterwards. So all this was happening while I was at peak. And so 1st of February, I was meant to go in and teach a class at 6 a.m. Woke up crying, couldn't stop crying. I had a raging chest infection. And normally I would have taught through a raging chest infection because I'm like that. Unless I'm throwing up or my leg has fallen off, I'll turn up, right? But I couldn't. I just couldn't. And it was only down the road, that one as well. I just couldn't stop crying. I phoned in sick. The gym were horrible to me about me calling in sick. And I'm like, why do I work for these people, honestly? And then I went to see the doctor a couple of weeks later, who signed me off with stress. There's no point in signing a self-employed person off with stress because they can't earn money. Okay. So I was getting back to it. I cut down the classes I was doing. I realised it was autistic burnout. I had suspected that my husband was probably on the spectrum, and because he'd had some health problems, I'd looked into it. Okay. And then I just thought, I'll do the test for myself. I tried to do the test as him. Turns out you can't do a psychological test as another person, even if you're married. So I did myself. And I apologise now if I'm about to offend you, but I find this particularly funny. I looked down at the result of the test and I had 42 on the AQ test. And I was like, so the borderline cutoff is like 30. Okay. So I just went, my brain went, Jesus Christ, you're Rain Man. Like, I'm like, how have I not noticed that I've got, and I nearly maxed out the test. Wow. And then I went and did another test. Like, this one was called Aspie quiz. I don't know if you've seen it. It gives you like a visual representation. So if your graph is on the left, you're neurotypical. If it's on the right, you're autistic. Yeah. All of it was on the right, apart from the communication, which was just tipping into the left. It's like, oh, you could just about liaise with the others, but not quite. And then after I realised, so then I bought a book about burnout, and then I also got obsessed with the idea of autistic burnout. NHS signed me off with stress, but they wouldn't help me. And then I eventually set on the idea of getting a private autism diagnosis. And parents, well, I had to ask the parents to do a questionnaire, and then they paid for it. That was handy because I was saving up for it. But I had no help afterwards. So I was just getting myself back together, so I got diagnosed on the 5th of October 2019 was my autism diagnosis. And I was just getting things back together. I was building up to do a bit more exercise classes again. I'd made some decisions about, like, I'm going to retire from XYZ at Christmas, which was going to be my 42nd birthday or something. So it was like time to wind down a bit. And then it was all going all right. I was getting my fitness back a bit. And then obviously we come into early 2020 and my entire career is destroyed in one evening by Boris Johnson going on the TV putting us into lockdown. Because I knew that gyms were going to be closed for a long time, way longer than they said. That's my only income. It's how I get fit. It's where I see my friends. My business as an accountant, I specialised in accountancy for fitness professionals. Now, niching is great, right? Niching is a really good way to make money. I had 200 clients. But again, as soon as Boris goes on the TV, I knew that half of those clients were going to leave the sector, at least half. And the ones that stayed were not going to have the money to pay me, right? And then I had a situation, so there were these government grants available, and accountants, it's not my responsibility to claim people's government grants for them. I was signed up to do people's tax returns, but I'm a nice person. So I'm an empath. I had people phoning me up, crying down the phone, saying, I can't get a government grant and I can't afford to feed my children. I'm about to be evicted. I'm not a counsellor, I'm an accountant, right? But I was trying to help these people because on some level they're my friends, because like we're all in the same industry, right? I went into it because I wanted to help other people like me. So I had to deal with all of their stress, the fact that my business was definitely going down the toilet, that all of the strategies I had in place to deal with my autism had been pulled out from under me deliberately by someone else, and nothing I can do about it, knowing I'm going to be stuck in the house for a year, knowing that I'm going to get fat, knowing that I'm going to lose my social skills, and not being able to do a single thing about it, and just having to sit there and they dangle that little carrot over you. Oh, we might open up soon. Oh, no, we're not. We're shutting again. Shall we open up again? Let's close again. Oh, let's open gyms, but let's not have group exercise classes. Or let's open gyms and you can stand 20 foot apart in a corridor in a mask talking to each other from semaphore, right? I was teaching classes in one gym. I'm in a room with people breathing on me on a very basic level. And I have to leave the room. And when I leave the room, I put a mask on. And I'm like, I'm no virologist. But if I'm not safe in there without a mask, if I'm not safe in this corridor without a mask, I'm not safe in that studio without a mask. Now, I'm not saying whether I'm safe or not, but those two things are mutually exclusive. I can't be breathed on in there and be okay and then have to put a mask on when I come out here. And the absolute, I'm trying not to swear, the absolute idiocy of the whole thing drove me so little. And I even had a manager come up to me and say, put your mask on. And I'm like, keep breathing on me. And I can't teach body combat wearing a mask. And I was hyperventilating. I can't, like, it's anxiety. And so what happened? Not only had I, one second, not only had it all taken away from me, then when I went back, it had been ruined and everyone was broken, everyone was depressed. Loads of people never came back, never saw them again. And like, they took everything. And that's why I burned out. I was burned out.
Wasn't it? Was that the peak? That was when you were like, right, I can't do this anymore. Is that it?
My mind broke. I woke up one day and I literally, something happened and I felt like I died, like just something in my brain. I died. And then after that, I had to change my name to Luna.
Really?
I couldn't keep my name. I had to change my name because it was either change my name or kill myself, like literally that. Because it's like, I don't want anything to do with Diane. I don't want anything to do with Diane's life. I don't want to be an accountant. I don't want anything to do with Diane's friends. And part of it is like, I'm embarrassed at the state that I've got in, because I was like that person that taught 25 classes a week and oh my God, you're so fit. And then suddenly I'm thrown back to my teenage self. I'm obese, my hair's gone grey. Like my body stopped working on me. I prided myself on my fitness is gone. I prided myself on my brains are gone. Whatever looks I had were gone. And I'm like, I bumped into a friend in a gym that I've known for years. And the first thing I said to her was, don't look at me, I'm fat.
Gosh. When was this?
And because that was when we reopened. It was at Valentine's. My friend Laura, I hadn't seen her in months, and they were quite good mates. She's very pretty and attractive, and she looks quite like you actually. But I saw her looking like a model as usual. I'm like, oh my God, I'm obese, and now there's Laura, and I was just so ashamed of myself. I couldn't not acknowledge the fact that I was obviously twice the size I was when she last saw me, and like I wanted to acknowledge it because I thought she was thinking it. So I was scared to even associate with my own friends because they all knew me when I was skinny. And I worked so hard because I was fat as a child. I'd worked so hard to lose that person. And that literally is my worst nightmare. It was my worst nightmare. And I couldn't continue. And so I changed my name to Luna. And then anyone who offered me any classes in gyms, I said, yes, that's fine. But I want everyone to call me Luna. So I got offered some classes at David Lloyd, which is very kind of Vic. Vic wanted someone for body pump. So I said, well, I can do it, but I just want you to know that I'm fat. And if that is not a problem for your members, then that's fine, I'll do it. Because I've been for my weight before now.
And
so
did you find that with your change of size, did it actually, were there problems you getting back to teaching, or were they accepting?
But the strangest thing, it's been quite humbling, because since I've been, not that I was perfect, since I've been more normal looking, I guess, chubbier, people in classes like me better.
Well, that's good.
I expected, well, I mean, I have had a bit of crap from some people, because some people would look at a fat instructor and just walk out. But the majority of people in my classes like me more now that I'm overweight and broken than they did when I was in my prime, because I don't intimidate them so much.
Yeah, and also that you're kind of like coming from maybe from what they're going through to a certain extent, you know. So
yeah, I mean, I was quite scary looking at one point, I guess, but I thought that was a good thing.
so coming back to Kundalini, so having gone through your burnout and the stuff that you went through was horrendous. So when you actually, what was it for you that made you to decide that, okay, I want to sign up to a Kundalini course that you were going to do online? What was it that was the thing that made you want to do that?
Yeah, I'd been following, for some reason, I'd been following this guy called Jaidev Singh. He's a Californian guy, I think you know of him. And he does free Kundalini workshops on like full moons and stuff. And I guess it must have been served up to me as an advert. And then I did one. And then every time that he had one of these events, I would do it. And I would go down to my shed, which was where I've got my gym before I had this. And I would go down there and do it. And I really struggled with it. I found it very, very hard, and he doesn't give options. So I had to like make my own modifications and stuff. But it was really, really clearing. And also what I liked about it was a lot of, you call them kriyas or whatever the movements are, the movement patterns are very much the same as movements you would do in group exercise. So when I would teach aerobics, we'd be doing, you know, this sort of thing or whatever. And I'm like, oh, it's like yoga aerobics, kind of. And like that, and it was all, it's very much about, he's very much about the music, and I'm very musically driven. So, and I always had, it was always nice and relaxing. But then I looked in, so that was great, and I enjoyed it. And but then if you look into Kundalini yoga on the internet, you can read some quite scary things. So while I was happy doing his things, I was like,
do research.
Of my Kundalini course, the first thing they did was like tell us some like really mad stuff that might happen, which put me off. I'm like, and then once I met you, it's like, well, I've had now experiences with 2 Kundalini instructors, and nothing too disturbing has happened other than a bit of trauma release. So, oh, and this guide, but you know, nothing scary has happened though. And also because I'm literal minded, they say that obviously the Kundalini energy rising up your spine is like a snake, and I'm so literal minded that I'm like, there's a literal snake in my body, and then that freaked me out.
Yeah. No literal
but I was tempted by it but scared by it at the same time.
Yeah, I can see what you mean. Yeah. And so so you've done 2 classes by Jaidev, is it at that point?
2 or 3.
Okay, yeah. And then you found out about me through Facebook, and then you came
and then I think it was Pippa that tagged me on one of your statuses, I think, and then I was first of all I was wary of you, because I'm always wary of yoga teachers. Nothing personal, just a few yoga teachers. I've had a few bad experiences over the years with yoga teachers, so I'm always a little bit reticent. But then you know, you're so nice. Like it's just it's fine. It's comfortable. So
as long as you're comfortable, that's the important thing. And so
yeah, but obviously being autistic is a little bit like getting to know people is difficult.
Of course, yeah, that is the hardest thing about it. And you also were able to come and join me at one of my autism groups that I teach Kundalini yoga at. Well, that I did. I'm not doing that anymore, but I'm hoping to do more of that in the future. And can you explain to maybe our autism viewers, for you, how you found that it may help you with your autism? If there's anything.
Well, first of all, I was actually a lot more comfortable in the specific class for autistic people, because I'm just like, I don't have that whole, am I going to do something that neurotypicals will think is weird thing. And also it was nice to see people with sort of disabilities similar to my own, like and yeah, in terms of the autism, so basically I think I definitely, when I'm stimming, it's stuck energy in my body and it's just like trying to claw my own skin off or, you know, shake it out. So having a space where you have permission to do that, and effectively particularly the autism specific class felt like I had permission to be as autistic as I wanted to without judgment, which is rare.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it is, because I'm like, obviously I would always suppress a meltdown, or if I'm excited I like to flap, but I won't do it because it's embarrassing, etc. And so just having a chance, can I have a little flap now?
Yeah, go for it.
See, I really like people are so judgmental, aren't they, you see? So that it's nice to have space where you can just, it's a bit like going to a rave in that sense, because obviously when you go to a rave you completely let loose and you just dance. So and it is a bit like that, but obviously it's
in time with music. When you're at a rave, it's in time.
It's reduced my it's trance music, you see, and it's kind of the same, isn't it? Because you're putting people into a trance, kind of. But it's, well, how does it help with autism? Well, I'd say actually I don't find my autism to be generally a problem day to day, but my ADHD is.
All right.
I think the variation in how I am, I would describe it as ADHD, and it basically reduces the bad ADHD traits like brain fog, like not being able to sit still, having ants in your pants all the time, the constant distraction, the constant need to distract yourself by just touching your phone or a fidget or something like that. It's okay. I think ADHD is like, I would perceive ADHD as like scattered energy, right? And it draws it back in and it calms it,
brings you more focus. So when I'm assuming that with your ADHD, have you been on any drugs like Concerta or any of the
I was,
okay,
but I didn't. Well, I'm partly not on them because I can't afford them, because I had a private diagnosis and I could have got that transferred to the NHS, but because I was in burnout, I didn't have the energy to fight it, and it is a fight. So I continued to pay for the medication, but it was costing me £125 a month, and I was slowly running out of money. And it didn't seem to be working as well as it could have in the start. And I thought, well, I can't really afford it. So I just took myself off it. I probably should be on it. I could do with it a bit. I take supplements when I remember. My ADHD is not monitored by the doctor because it was a private diagnosis and I can't afford to pay the private psychiatrist. And if I go to the NHS at this point, my NHS doctor hasn't seen me really in 4 years, and it's a brand new presentation, and they're just going to go, jog on, go away, you're high functioning, and I can't be bothered with it. I'm supposed to be going into the doctor because I'm 45. They wanted to have me in to check my hormones, and I hate them so much that I've not booked the appointment, because I do not want to set foot in that place again, because the day I wanted help, they wouldn't help me, and they in fact hindered me. And so I do not want to be on medication because I do not want to be controlled by my doctor.
No, I understand.
I do not want someone to have the power to put me on medication and then take me off it on a whim and ruin my life. I'd rather not have it in the first place.
Yes, exactly. So what I was going to ask you is that the work that you do with Kundalini yoga, because you're clearing the chakras, do you find that it is filling that sort of space that medication would? I'm not suggesting people don't take medication, but I'm just trying to
it helps, so it's not, it wouldn't, medication is fairly instant. The thing is with the medication is it's almost like it's forcing you to function. So you take a timed release amphetamine at 7 o'clock in the morning, and then you're high until it wears out 12 hours later, whether you like it or not. So that's actually quite unpleasant at times when you're tired, because imagine just you're tired and you take speed to get through the day. That is basically what you're doing. You're forcing yourself to stay awake, which I don't really agree with me. It might be all right for others. And so with the Kundalini, it's not such a like, it's almost like, you know, it's like you know, when you've got an animal that's asleep and they shoot it with a thing to wake it up again. It's like that when I took meds.
Yeah.
And so the Kundalini just helps to keep you level
Yeah.
more of the time, rather than being like shot in the bum to wake you up.
Yeah.
But that's my experience with one medication. There are different medications available, but because of my financial situation and because of the NHS not wanting to help me, I've not been able to explore those. So it could be that there was other medication, non-stimulant medication, that might have worked better, but unfortunately it's not open to me to have it.
Yeah.
So the yoga and the I do a lot of like self-massage.
That's very good.
And like work now.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that all helps, but I will just go with my natural functioning. So this week I've not been that functional, whereas next week I might be super functional. And instead of like being down on myself for like having a bad week, everyone gets tired, just going with it. And I know that next week my energy will be up and I'll get more done. So it's always about being non-judgmental about my condition.
That's what the clearing the chakras are doing to you as well, because they're helping you make sense of your own psyche, your own mindset, your own physical body, accepting what you have, and not being at war with yourself all the time, which a lot of human beings do. And the more clearing that you do, and it happens because naturally you feel like, oh, I want to go for a swim, or I want to go for a walk, or you know, you have the desire to do something and you go ahead and you do it, and that shows you that you are in alignment with your true self, with your inner being. And we only have that difficulty or like challenges when we want something, when our ego wants something but our inner being wants something else. But if you're able to find that true alignment with your inner being, then your chakras are in alignment, you know. So that's very powerful. So is there anything else you'd like to add at all, Luna? Because I think we've come to the end.
I think that one thing I would like to add is the physical healing side. So I think that a lot of people don't really realise what burnout is, and they think it's just being a bit tired for a long time, like chronic fatigue. It's not just that. For me, my entire body shut down, all my muscles stopped working. So what the Kundalini has really done is help me get back in tune, obviously with my chakras, but also like my muscles are working. So I don't know how long I've been on this call, but I've been sat up here for a long time. Normally my back would be screaming at me. But as a result of everything I've been doing and doing more yoga, like my spine is actually, I'm a little bit uncomfortable now, but my spine is fine. And, you know, I'm still, normally I'd be panicking that I'm talking rubbish. No, but I don't think I am.
Yeah, it's been a good conversation. We've spoken about your burnout, autism, ADHD, and how Kundalini has benefited you, and your process, and how you've come through it, and what it might look like for other people who are going through similar things, and how burnouts affect your physical body, and how you're not able to tune into your muscles, and overall system basically shutting down. So yeah, you have shared a lot. But like, is there any last points that you want to share to encourage?
I've got one.
Go on.
I think that obviously being autistic is ADHD, is a disability, right? And a lot of people, myself included, were probably a person that thought that being disabled is a negative thing, internalized ableism. So it's like, it's okay for other people to be disabled, but if I'm disabled, that's embarrassing. Okay. And what I'm here to say is, I'm happy to be autistic. I like being autistic. I wouldn't want to be one of the other weirdos. Yes, I have some disabilities, but I don't see that as a negative thing anymore. I just see that as something about me. And yesterday I applied for disability benefits, which was hard, but it's like, autism acceptance starts with you accepting yourself with your autism and your traits, and not judging yourself. Because if you don't accept yourself, obviously it's harder to project the image that autism is. It's not, autism is not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a thing that exists that some people have. And there's no shame in it. I think we were brought up to be ashamed of our autistic traits, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. What's the problem with being childlike when you're 45? I'm more fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're in touch with who you really are, and that's amazing. Anyway, so I think we're about out of time for now. So thank you so much for joining me today, Luna. And it was really, really lovely to get to know you more, and for you to share your challenges and also the strengths that you've come through it as well. So thank you. And I'm going to end the session here now, but stay on for a little conversation. All right.